Welcome to Kathryn Raaker's World. Innovation, culture, adventure, fashion and health, artists, destinations, traditions. This is Kathryn Raaker's World.
Hi, this is Kathryn Raaker of Kathryn Raaker's World. I am very honored to have William Seitz, the Majority Leader of the House of Representatives of the state of Ohio, on our show today. Welcome to our show, William.
Kathryn, we've been great friends for a long time, so it's a pleasure to be with you.
I know, and you know, you don't mind if I call you Bill?
No, that's
right.
fine, that's fine.
Actually, you started out at St. Antoninus Church.
I did,
right?
On the Parish Education Commission, yes.
Right.
And I simultaneously was serving on the Cincinnati School Board at the time, so that's kind of a unique qualification to have been on both a Catholic school board and a public school board at the same time, yes.
When did you go to the House of Representatives in the Senate?
I started in the Ohio House in 2001, served there until 2007, when I was appointed to go over to the Ohio Senate. I served there until I was term limited out at the end of 2016. Came back to the Ohio House representing my old district, Green Township, Delhi, Cheviot, and that's where I am today as Majority Leader. So it's been almost 20 years of public service at the state level, and then let's not forget the 7 years I spent as Green Township trustee between my school board days and my state house days. So I think that's been very valuable, actually, to have good experience at the local elected level before you go on and try to serve at the state level.
Have you ever seen anything in politics today like we have? Would you want to become a congressman or senator in Washington, D.C.?
You know, I've considered that over the years, and my answer has always been the same: no. Because actually, we get more done at the state level in terms of passing the laws that affect the 11 million people that live in Ohio than Congress gets done. They have been at loggerheads for a long, long time. They're sort of a national debating society.
That's true.
You've seen this obsession recently with impeaching the president,
right,
as Congress disregards the important work that they could be doing on questions of health care or infrastructure improvement and so forth. So I have much preferred, though I've thought about it, but I've much preferred to stay at the state level. We actually do get things done, and by and large, most of the legislation we pass at the state level is bipartisan. There's not quite the amount of partisan infighting at the state legislative level as you have seen in Washington for these many years.
You know, this is really an important year for us. Would you agree with getting the House back in the Republican Party? That really needs to happen, don't you think?
Well, I think it would be very nice to get the House back, and I think we have a chance to get the House back, actually. I'm encouraged by what I see. I'm enough of a political veteran to understand that when the economy is as good as it is, it takes an awful lot to unseat an incumbent president. And I would hope that our incumbent president is reelected and that his coattails can bring along some new friends and allies in the U.S. House, and I hope we preserve our majority in the U.S. Senate. But it's a watershed election because I think the voters will be stuck with Trump, and we can talk about Trump. We know what Trump has done for the last 3 years, and their other choices are likely to be either Bernie Sanders, who brags about being a democratic socialist, and even last week said he didn't mind if people call him a communist. That would be one choice that the Democrats might put up. And then the other would be Michael Bloomberg. And Brother Bloomberg, while he did serve as mayor of New York, he also is a globalist and a national nanny stater. He is no friend to the Second Amendment. He is pro-abortion. He is very liberal on the social issues. He buys into the climate change mantra similar to the Green New Deal. And he's very much an international apologist for China and their very repressive regime over there because he makes so much money on globalism. I think with Trump, you have a nationalist, someone who is putting America's interests first, rebuilding our military, extending the hand of friendship to our allies and even our enemies, but making sure that the trade deals we sign are good, solid trade deals, that are deals that the Americans will come out at least on even terms with. And you know, that's new. We have signed lots of trade deals over the years, and we always seem to get the short end of the stick. With Trump, with his new trade deal with Canada and Mexico, with the new trade deal with China, with the very important trade deal recently signed with Japan, I think he is helping to rebuild our economy. You see it in the stock market. You see it in the record low unemployment all across this country. And I think a powerful economy will serve as a very nice contrast to either the socialism of Bernie Sanders or the globalism of Michael Bloomberg.
I agree, totally. And I saw the crowds today in Las Vegas standing out in the rain, waiting for Mr. Trump, our wonderful president. And, you know, I think it's so exciting for our country to see that we brought new jobs back here. We brought new businesses. And I just want to mention this to you because we have a Made in America convention in Detroit at the Cocoa Center coming up in the first week of October, which I will be at, and I hope a lot of different companies and small manufacturers from all over Ohio and all across the country will be there. Because I think that we need to show that because, it's, you know, we've imported over many, many years everything from technology to whatever, but now we're exporting energy, which I think is so exciting.
Right. America, for the first time, Kathryn, America has become energy independent. And the reason is we in the United States, through something called fracking, have developed a previously unknown and untapped resource of natural gas. Here in Ohio, if Eastern Ohio, West Virginia, and Western Pennsylvania were a country, it would be the fourth largest natural gas producer in the world. And we're just talking about that little triangle of states here in the Midwest. Something similar is going on in Texas and in North Dakota. And we are now in the position of exporting natural gas, liquid natural gas, compressed natural gas. All of a sudden, we are no longer as dependent as we once were on Middle Eastern oil. And that's a good thing, because that allows us to retract our military from being the world's policemen, as they've had to do over the last 20 or 30 years, because no longer is the Middle Eastern oil so critically important to our economic success. And that is something that both Bloomberg and Sanders would undo overnight. They are against fracking. They do not want any more natural gas pipelines. Sanders has signed on to the Green New Deal, which is going to cost trillions of dollars and make us redependent, frankly, on foreign sources of energy, because you cannot build enough windmills and enough solar farms to take the place of natural gas, coal, and nuclear. You can't do it under today's technology.
And here's the other thing. We have clean coal now. We have clean coal technology. And that's really important to understand that. And so the wonderful people that I've been working with over the years about making coal clean through bringing out water out of the what am I thinking?
Sequestration. It's the sequestration process.
And it totally has changed.
Yes.
I mean, they would actually shut down every coal mining situation. They would shut down everything. And people don't understand that, do we really want to be Venezuela?
I think that would be, you know, Venezuela went from a very prosperous country.
And they were an oil producer,
They were a huge oil producer. And they took a big left turn a decade or two ago towards socialism. It's been an unmitigated disaster for Venezuela. And frankly, almost everywhere in the world that socialism has been tried, it has failed, all right? as Winston Churchill, I think, once famously said, or was it Margaret Thatcher, the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money.
That's right.
And I think that's a very apt way to sum it all up. We have a capitalist system. The income inequality that our Democratic friends like to talk about is a problem, but it is getting better under Trump. The wage growth that has occurred in the last 3 years has primarily been at the lower end of the wage spectrum. Finally, after 10 or 20 years of essential wage stagnation for those at the bottom rung of the wage-earning sector, their wages are rising more rapidly than anybody else's. So that's why a recent Gallup poll showed that somewhere between 92 and 93% of the American public are satisfied with their life and the way it's going right now.
Let me say this, blue-collar workers, we're starting to start new tech schools.
Right.
Actually, and Sinclair is going to be putting in a welding system.
Yes.
Do you know any plumbers that are poor?
I don't.
Or electricians?
Let me tell you, a well-qualified, certified welder, electrician, or plumber is going to make more than a starting teacher or people that graduate from college with majors in art history, early Sanskrit, minority studies, political science. You're better off working with your hands. And frankly, we need more of those folks because we are going to have a shortage in some of those areas. Just this week in the Ohio legislature, we passed a bill that would extend tax credits to companies that are willing to train more truck drivers. Because of the booming economy,
right,
we have more and more semi-trucks needed to be on the road, and there are fewer and fewer truck drivers to take those available jobs. We have redoubled our efforts at the state of Ohio level to invest in our two-year colleges that are giving those, and in certified programs like welding, to give people those journeyman credits that they need to get into the workforce with good jobs. And surprisingly, here in Ohio at least, many of the construction trade unions are now giving just as much of their campaign support to Republicans as they historically gave to Democrats.
That's right.
Because we recognize and sympathize and are trying to help the working man, the working woman.
Right, and you probably see a lot more in the sector of women-owned businesses that are conservative, that really want to start their own businesses in the United States.
Right.
And I am surprised about how many women-owned businesses support President Trump and the Republican Party.
Right. I think certainly more than the press would let on.
Right. I'm conservative press. Remember that.
Well, I know, and you know, with some exceptions like you and some of our friends on Fox, the press is pretty overwhelmingly hostile to President Trump.
That's
right. I mean, I've read article after article that somewhere around 90% of the mentions of Trump by the mainstream media are negative. Okay.
Right.
But I think the public is kind of drowning it out.
We're totally drowning it out.
Right. We've heard it. We've heard this. You've cried wolf one too many times. Right. Go away. Don't bother me anymore. We now have an appreciation that you have a bias. Even when you're trying to report the news, you cannot get your own liberal biases out of your reporting. And that's why increasingly the public is turning to alternative news sources like the Kathryn Raaker's World Show.
An America-owned network.
Yes, exactly. So you know, that's another benefit, frankly, of the social media age, where people now have other opportunities to talk to one another instead of just listening to ABC, NBC, and CBS, instead of just reading the New York Times and the other old line papers. So on balance, that technology has been a very good thing. But I want to again underscore the importance of a good economy to President Trump's reelection chances. And I would ask your viewers, what is the vision that the Democrats have for a better economy? And again, their energy policies alone would disqualify them because, and I come back to this, they say, well, we want to invest in renewable energy, which sounds great, except it doesn't work when the wind doesn't blow, and it doesn't work when the sun doesn't shine. And until we're able to develop better storage capacity to store that energy developed by wind and sun when the wind does blow and the sun does shine, these sources of energy will never be able to make up for what we currently use in clean burning natural gas, clean coal, clean nuclear. Frankly, we're going to be dependent on those fossil fuel sources for a long time to come if we want to keep this roaring economy going.
Well, the other thing is I need to take a break.
Okay.
If you don't mind, and we'll be right back.
That's great.
With State Representative, Majority Leader of the House of Representatives, William Seitz. We'll be right back.
Thanks, Kid.
No more, it's none of my business.
No more, he didn't mean it.
No more, not my problem.
No more, she was flirting with him.
No more, she was asking for it.
No more, boys will be boys.
No more, I'll say something next time.
No more bystanding.
No more ignorance.
No more excuses.
No more.
Ballerina.
Sometimes all it takes to be a dad is remembering how to be a kid again. Take time to be a dad today.
We're back on Kathryn Raaker's World, and I'm so honored to have the Majority Leader of the House of Representatives, William Seitz, with us today. And he's such a powerful speaker, and I'm so proud to be in his presence, right? And I'll tell you, you are passionate. I didn't realize how passionate you are, Bill.
Well, you know, for a long, long time, I've been in elected office. I had good grounding as a local elected official. I've worked on state issues for 20 years. I follow the news very closely. And I've been a conservative my whole life. So I think we have an obligation to try to preach the gospel as and when we can. One of the things we didn't get to touch on in our earlier segment that has been a passion of mine at the State House has been criminal justice reform.
Right.
And let me tell you something. This is very important. Over 1 million Ohioans out of 11 million have some kind of criminal conviction on their record more than just a traffic ticket. And in this era when workforce shortages keep looming larger and larger because everybody's working, hey, we need to break down the barriers that prevent ex-offenders from finding jobs. These are people that have served their sentences. They're back out in society. If we don't do a better job of A, retraining them, and B, removing the stigma of their prior offense so as to enable them to get into the workforce, then the risk is they will go back to a life of crime simply because they know nothing else and have nothing else to do. So some years ago, we started a program in Ohio that's called the Certificates of Qualification for Employment Program, CQE. And what it does is it allows people that are out of prison to go back to court, demonstrate to the court that they have been rehabilitated, and then the court gives them a CQE, a piece of paper. They take that piece of paper to any private or public employer that is willing to take a chance on them.
Right.
And if they are hired, then that employer cannot be sued for negligent hiring. So it's like the good housekeeping seal of approval. And when we talked to the Chamber of Commerce about this bill, they said the number one reason why employers do not hire ex-offenders is they're afraid of getting sued if the guy screws up on the job and then some plaintiff's lawyer comes along and says, you were careless in hiring he or she in the first place.
Right.
So by extending that immunity to people who have one of these pieces of paper, we're creating new opportunities for employment for these folks. And what we're doing in Ohio in that regard is very similar to the First Step Act that Congress did pass at the request of President Trump to provide additional ways of relieving the overcrowding pressure on our prison system, giving people second chances. I believe you saw an example of that during the State of the Union speech.
We did.
And others. So, you know, those who want to say that Trump is a demagogue and he's terrible and he's heartless and he's cruel and he's racist and he's bigoted, they need to look at what his record is on criminal justice reform. And they need to look at what the Republican Party's record is on criminal justice reform. I have been a criminal justice reformer for the last 10 years, and we have steadfastly worked to do things like put term limits on the parole board, because we thought maybe the parole board is just keeping people in prison in order to preserve their jobs as parole board members. So we did that. We equalized the penalties on crack cocaine and powder cocaine. Powder cocaine was used by the white community. Crack cocaine was predominantly used by the black community, and it was punished far more seriously than was powder cocaine, even though they're pharmacologically the same thing.
Right.
We equalized those penalties so that it was not operating to the detriment of minority populations. If we were really as racist and bigoted as the left-wing media wants to make us out to be, we would not have done those things. But the fact is, we do believe in second chances. We do believe in redemption, in the possibility of rehabilitation. And frankly, we're going to need to do a better job of it because we have so many people with a criminal record, and they just want a chance to be successfully reintegrated into society.
I'm going to tell you something that you're not going to believe.
Okay.
You remember St. Antoninus?
I certainly do.
Do you remember Share-A-Home?
Yes.
And Share-A-Home, my mother actually founded it as a nonprofit, and then I took it over in 1990. And do you know that my mother was one of the first women to hire criminals that had gotten out of,
Right.
prisoners that had served their time.
Right.
And we hired them as chefs and cooks.
Right.
It was a great program that we did. And I remember one specific person. His name was James. And I had given him a first chance, a second chance, and then I gave him a third chance because he was an alcoholic. He had problems. And I have to tell you, he was one of the best workers I ever had. Absolutely the best. My mom gave people second chances.
Right.
She really cared
Right.
about them, and they turned out to be wonderful, wonderful workers.
Right.
So I think that that is something that you have to really look at. Because sometimes when you're in prison, you may be in for an offense that was really not anything major.
Right, right.
You weren't a killer,
Non-violent offenses. Right,
non-violent.
Right.
And there's tons of those out there today, and
Well,
I totally agree with you on that.
You know, far and away, the majority of people that come to prison are generally from 18 years old to 25 to maybe 30 years old.
That's right.
But when they get out, they have matured. The wild oats that put them there in the first place have been replaced by a more sober and mature point of view. And that's why I believe that this population is able to find meaningful work. Now, I'm not saying I would want the ex-bank robber to be hired as the bank teller,
That's
okay? But I am saying that there are plenty of jobs, like the example you gave with Share-A-Home,
Right.
where they can find meaningful employment. They won't end up being as rich as Michael Bloomberg, perhaps, but they will be able to live a solid life and hopefully a crime-free life.
Right.
And let's also admit this. These folks that are caught up in the web of drugs and alcohol, it isn't easy to break that habit.
That's right.
It isn't easy to break that habit. I mean, I will be honest, I still smoke cigarettes, okay? Well, cigarettes, they say that's bad, and it is bad. But it isn't easy to quit that, and that's just nicotine.
I know, 25 years with nicotine.
Right.
And it took me, and I didn't start smoking until I was like 26 years old.
Yeah, well.
Which is a really tough habit to quit.
Sure.
Really.
Right. So what we're doing in the area of drugs at the state level is we have a program, a court-administered program, where we have drug courts, and we have a program called Intervention in Lieu of Conviction. So that if you are charged with a drug offense, typically a possession offense, not a trafficking offense, they give you a choice. Here is our program of treatment. All right?
Right.
And if you successfully complete the program of treatment, we will not convict you at all. It will be an intervention in lieu of a conviction.
Right.
We've had that program on the books for years, but what we've done in recent years is we've given people multiple chances at ILC because we recognize that they may not successfully quit the first time, okay?
Right.
And so that's been another thing that I've championed over the years, and we've also given greatly expanded opportunities for these folks to get their prior convictions sealed. All right. In other words, in essence, expunged or sealed. Okay, for relatively minor offenses, misdemeanor offenses. Okay, and when it's sealed, that means it's not subject to a private employer background check, and you don't have to disclose it when you go ask someone to hire you because you've had the opportunity to have your prior conviction sealed or expunged. And so we've expanded those opportunities too. All in the service of trying to get these people rehabilitated, trying to get these people back on their feet.
Right. The other thing that I'm very involved in, which I think that you're pretty proud of, is I belong to a lot of different veterans organizations.
Mm-hmm.
We need to hire more veterans. We need
Yes.
to do certain things for them. And one of the things that I really truly believe, Bill, is if we educate our younger generation, and you know, Ohio has done something that a lot of other states haven't done,
Right.
where we actually are teaching civics
Correct.
and government back in the schools again. And I'm part of a national program, by the way. We'd love to have you come and speak in Washington for Champions of Liberty, which is part of the Veterans of in Defense of Liberty, which we're sending veterans into the schools now.
Right.
We're starting pavilions all around the country
Right.
for former veterans to go into high schools that don't have your program and are teaching not only the Constitution but the Bill of Rights and a lot of other things that we need to know. Because if you don't understand our history, how would you not vote to be a communistic country?
Well,
seriously.
you're 100% right. And you know, a few years ago, with my ardent support, we put this into our required school curriculum, okay? And because we felt so strongly I was in the Senate at the time, it says, the State Board of Education shall incorporate into the social studies standards for grades 4 to 12 academic content regarding the original texts of the Declaration of Independence, the Northwest Ordinance, the Constitution of the United States and its amendments, with emphasis on the Bill of Rights and the Ohio Constitution. So we are saying this is something we think is vitally important to learn, and we require that it be taught in the fabric of our K through 12 system from grades 4 through 12. So I think that's great, and other states would do well to emulate this. We call it the Founding Fathers Documents provision. We want people to be grounded in how this great country was founded and the underpinnings of our constitutional republic. And as you well know, we are a republic.
Not a
we are not a democracy, still less are we a mobocracy, okay? Right. It was set up as a republic. And I'll bet you, if we ask 100 people, there probably would not be more than half that could correctly say we're a republic and not a democracy, okay? Or be able to define the differences between the two. So we're going to correct that. We've had this on the books now in Ohio for about 8 years. Hopefully it's going to make some difference, but you're 100% right. We need every American to be aware of our history because we truly are that liberty beacon throughout the world. We have saved the world at least twice in the last century between World War I and World War II, at least twice. And that's why all these folks around the world want to come here. Now, if they come here legally, I welcome them with open arms. But if there are so many on the left that think America is a terrible place, well, if it's such a terrible place, then why are we the #1 destination that the rest of the world wants to come to?
And I want to thank you so much for joining
Great fun.
me. And do you have a website you want people to go to?
Well, you're welcome to contact me in Columbus at rep30@ohiohouse.gov. That's the best way to get in touch with me for my official State House duties. rep30@ohiohouse.gov.
And don't forget to go to our website at KathrynRaakersWorld.com and also our Let'sJustTalkRadio.com. We'll see you next time on Kathryn Raaker's World. See you soon.